This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Visit squarespace.com/AndyHoops to get 10% off your first purchase. Mr. Big Shot, one of the most clutch players and biggest shot makers of his generation. Chauncey Billups was overlooked by pretty much every other guard of his era. He didn't have the flash or quickness of Allen Iverson or Tony Parker. He was not as explosive as, well, basically most of the NBA. But what he did provide was way more than what you saw on the court. Billups was one of the best leaders ever, the most respected player on those Pistons teams. He was the perfect teammate, the perfect guy to have as the voice of the locker room. And through the years, his leadership on and off the floor impacted the team in ways that will never show up in the box score. Even when he was an old man playing for the Clippers, missing most of the games with injuries, the team still looked up to him and he was the real leader. When asked about his leadership skills, Billups said, "I always believe that to become a great leader, you have to be a great follower. And being a great follower is definitely something he got used to when he was younger." How's it going, ladies and gents? My name's Andy, and today we're going to take a look at the career of Chauncey Billups. How good was he actually? And what do fans remember him by? Coming into the NBA, Billups had a rough start to his career. From 1997 to 2002, he was on 5 different teams in his first 5 seasons. As the 3rd overall pick, that's crazy. You would expect that, being a 3rd overall pick, teams would actually give you a chance, but he was never a priority for those teams. Boston, Toronto, his first stint in Denver, Minnesota, and even Orlando, who he never played a single game for. All those teams prioritized somebody else, some other point guard over Billups. To be honest, you couldn't blame them because Billups did not have a high ceiling, and they opted to go for point guards who had more potential. Frankly, when he first entered the NBA, Billups was a very bad shooter, and you combine that with his below-average athleticism and it was a bad combination. As a rookie, he played for the Boston Celtics and was having a decent year, but then they traded him at the deadline for Kenny Anderson, an older, more established point guard. Looking back, Billups stated, "Playing for a guy like Pitino, he always has you under a whole lot of pressure to play fast. A crazy style of play for the pros. That didn't help. That didn't give me a chance to really slow down and listen to myself, listen to the game and what's going on. I never really had that chance. It was a recipe for disaster there." So for his first 5 years, he was bouncing around the league, although his shooting did show signs of improvement. By 2002, his last season in Minnesota, Billups shot 39% from 3 and averaged a career-high 5.5 assists per game. Things started to look up. He was getting better. Fast forward to the 2002 offseason, and Billups would sign a 6-year, $35 million contract to be the starting point guard for the Detroit Pistons. This was when his career really took off. Billups immediately led the team to the Eastern Conference Finals in his first season in Detroit. This would begin a string of 7 consecutive years that Billups would reach the conference finals. 6 straight years with Detroit and then 1 in Denver in 2009. These were the best years of his career. From 2003 to 2010, he would make 5 straight All-Star games, 3 All-NBA selections, 2 All-Defensive teams, and a champion and Finals MVP in 2004. During this period, he was averaging 17 points and 6 assists per game on 40% from 3 and 90% at the free throw line. He had a true shooting percentage of 59%, higher than every other point guard of his era besides Steve Nash. In those years, he was also top 10 in win shares. In the 2005-06 season, he was 3rd in the entire league in win shares behind Dirk Nowitzki and LeBron James. Billups mastered his craft. He had all the tricks in the bag that helped him score, and while he wasn't the highest leaper, he was really strong and took contact very well. On top of that, he was never ever out of control and always controlled the pace of the game. On offense and defense, he was the most vocal player on the floor, making sure everyone was in the right spot. Through the years, Billups has hit many game winners and clutch shots, earning him the nickname Mr. Big Shot. The Pistons' 2004 run to the championship was Billups' most memorable year. It was only his 2nd season in Detroit and he has yet to make an All-Star team, and he was still barely recognized. That's what made the run so special, because Billups seemingly came out of nowhere. The 2004 finals featured a matchup against the star-studded powerhouse of a Lakers team. The Pistons came in as heavy underdogs, and that's being generous. They weren't just the underdogs, they were completely written off. Once the Lakers reached the finals, everyone thought it did not matter who made it out of the East, because in the past couple years, the Eastern Conference was clearly weaker than the West. And yet, the Pistons didn't care and shocked the world. They engaged in a total team effort to take them down, dismantling and suffocating them on defense, taking advantage of the Lakers' egos. According to Billups, and this is a quote that I've mentioned in other videos as well, but it's such a great breakdown of how the Pistons won the series. Billups said, "Our game plan was very calculated. We knew we were going to play Shaq straight up, and we knew there was no way we could stop Shaq straight up, and there was also no way we could stop Kobe straight up. But if we're going to play Shaq straight up, the Lakers' eyes are going to get big, which means they're going to keep throwing it down there. But what's going to happen is Mr. Bryant is going to get a little discouraged with getting no touches, and now the second half comes around and now he's pressing. He's going to start coming down and just breaking the offense. When you do that, you're done. You're playing right into our hands. Even if you start making those shots, you're finished." At the end of the series, it worked out just the way they planned. Shaq had a great series because he didn't see that many double teams, but Kobe was jacking up shots like crazy and played right into the Pistons' game plan. After the victory, Billups said, "From what I had been through in my career and all the people who said I couldn't make it and wouldn't be a top player, all the questions, all the doubters, all the things I've been through, and to do that and climb that mountain was a validation for me. It was what I always thought I could do and the player I always thought I could be." Billups finished the series averaging 21 points a game, 5 assists on ridiculous efficiency, as he capped off the best year of his life. The following season saw the Pistons return back to the finals but lose a heartbreaking 7-game series to the Spurs. They were the two best defensive teams in the league and it was an absolute grindfest, but also a very entertaining series to watch if you love defense. Offensively, both teams were pretty stale and they had a hard time scoring, but they still traded punch for punch. A couple mistakes at the end of Game 5 where they left Robert Horry completely open ultimately led to their downfall. Had they won that game, they would have likely won the series and become back-to-back champions. As the years went by, the power in the Eastern Conference started to shift, as the younger superstars quickly improved and gave the Pistons more competition. That, and in combination with losing Ben Wallace, the Pistons started to fall off. They would not be able to get back to the finals, although they were very close every season. Fast forward a couple years and Billups would get traded to the Denver Nuggets and play for his hometown team. This would be his second stint in Denver, but this time as an older, wiser star, he instantly turned them into a contender. In the 2008-09 season, he finished 6th in MVP voting, even ahead of his star teammate Carmelo Anthony. The 2009 Nuggets reached the Western Conference Finals, where they would fall to the Lakers in 6 games. At the twilight of his career, Billups would play for the Knicks, the Clippers, and then return to Detroit and retired as a Piston, capping off one of the most underrated careers of all time. So, how good was he actually? Well, I think in some years he was a top 5 point guard, and arguably the best defensive point guard of his era. All time, I'm not sure, maybe a top 20 point guard of all time? The point guard position is stacked though, so in the future with all these star point guards coming in, he might drop lower than that. As for his Hall of Fame chances, probably not, definitely not first ballot. But it is the Basketball Hall of Fame we're talking about, and I don't know, maybe he'll get in years later. But for a guy like Billups who had a rough start to his career but turned himself into a great point guard and leader, it was very impressive and he quickly shed that bust label that was given to him when he was younger. Even when he left the Pistons, he showed that he can play in any situation, as he fit in with the Denver Nuggets seamlessly, playing alongside Melo. Billups was a point guard who could play in any system, any offense because he was so versatile. If you need him to spot up and shoot threes, he could do that. If you need him to run an offense or run pick and rolls, he did that. If you need him to defend both guard positions, he was an excellent defender. If your team is struggling to score and needs someone to get some points, Billups was very crafty and very good at drawing fouls. Truly one of the most versatile point guards ever. I think he deserves a lot more praise, and I hope this video shed some light on how good he really was. Once again, I'd like to give a shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. If you want to build your own website, Squarespace makes everything so easy and you don't need any programming knowledge at all. They got a bunch of cool templates to choose from, so you can choose from a wide selection depending on what your website is about. Additionally, they also have marketing tools to promote your website and reach out to users with announcements or updates so you can keep in touch with all your fans. If you want to set up your own sports website or blog, you can do that. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/AndyHoops to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Chauncey Billups. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.